This is the best leadership team I've had since I've been here. Lots of great people in the past, but this team, there's not a team on the planet that works harder, cares more, thinks more creatively, steps up, says yes first. Everything that happens at this institution is the result of their collective commitment and effort. I want to particularly thank Shannon Walls for this amazing weekend. She's back. So great. People keep coming up to me and saying, "You're not going to let her go away again, are you? You're not going to let her." It's like, no, I'm not. I want to thank our faculty. And again, when you think about the heart and soul of Stevens, I always say that everything we do is in service to what happens in our classrooms, is in service to what happens between our faculty and our students. Yesterday was such a reminder of what you took away from being at Stevens College. And I know you were here under a wide variety of presidents, and I hear stories about them, and I just can't imagine the stories you're going to tell about me, and that's okay. But what you came back for and what you remember is your relationships, your interactions, and the lasting impact that your faculty had on you, and that remains absolutely true today. They will tell the same stories about some of our current faculty as you told yesterday about Mr. Shirky. Our staff, again, they care deeply. They're the ones that made me think about the mother-in-law thing. I love my mother-in-law. It's not that I don't. But when she comes, everything we can to make sure you have the best possible experience you can. And finally, of course, and not last, I should have started with them, is our students who love it when you come here. Yesterday at the other side of the bridge, as we walked across the bridge, and I said to them, I stood up on, that's how I talked to them, I stood up on the bench and said, okay, everybody, you know, this is it. These people care deeply about you. They love you. You need to get out there and make connections. On Sunday morning, I want you to send me the names of the 2 people, 3, but I count as 1, who are going to help you in your career's next steps. And they all sort of went like, oh, right? And I was like, I know, right? That's right, but you're never going to have a better room. You're never going to have a better group. So if you got to get into it, you got to do it. If you don't want to do it, that's why you should do it. So I don't know if they did, but they should have. But they love having you back because they get to see and hear and feel what it means to be part of this incredible, long-standing, historic community. So again, thank you. Couldn't do it without you. Wouldn't do it without you. But it takes a village, a Stevens village. It's been a time of celebration, as it should be. It's been a really special time of celebration. And I knew this was Shan's, this was all about her putting it together, and I was so happy that we were going to do what we did. What I didn't realize as we were planning it, that it was going to be such a perfect reminder to all of us about, as I said, that essence of Stevens as we head into a period of exceptional and extraordinary change. As you will, time of reconnection. I spent a lot of time looking for photographs of what might have been some of you. I have no idea, but we have lots of amazing photos. So again, good teachers. What does a good teacher do? I was going to have a syllabus like Margaret yesterday. She has a syllabus. But state of American higher education. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you what I told you. We're going to talk about the state of American higher education. If you've heard this, and again, hello streamers, if you've heard this, the state of the college, you will know that for the past number of years, I've been talking about the changing state of American education, higher education. This campus is pretty tired of going to presentations by me, and we start out with the first 5 slides about what's happening in higher education. We can't navigate this little kayak that is Stevens. We can't navigate the waters, the turmoil that we are in the middle of unless we understand really well what's in and beneath those waters. Context, environment, market is everything. And so Stevens, again, we're a kayak I always talk about. We're a little kayak in the water, not like Mizzou, which is like an ocean liner. Hard to turn, Mizzou, right? We're going to run circles around them. Yes, we are. But I appreciate your patience if you've heard it. Appreciate your attention in any case. Appreciate your thought, critical thinking about what's happening in higher education mean for little, nimble, dynamic, innovative, forever innovative Stephens College. What it means for us, what's going on, what we're going to do about it, and how you can help. Okay, disruption in all directions. And I use the term perfect storm, so it's such a cliche. But you know what the fact is that you cannot think or name of an aspect or element of higher education that is not under challenge. Our students, their profile, what they want, what they expect, the problems they bring to campus, when we finally can get them to come, the competition in the marketplace, not just from other private institutions, not just from public universities, but from commercial for-profit that have recognized, oh my God, there is trillions of dollars in education. And as you will see, I've got slides, I'm getting ahead of myself, what's happening in our labor market. Every time you hear a news report about the fact that the labor market, there's so many jobs, the labor market's robust, hiring is robust. Remember that there is phenomenal pressure in the market for kids not to go to college. They're the labor market. That's who they are. And there is enormous pressure for them to just leave high school and go right to work, because who needs college? And there's all these commercial enterprises that have got all kinds of really amazing opportunities for quick, free online learning. So we'll talk about that as well. But there is a dynamic going on that truly is reimagining, reconfiguring, reshaping higher education in ways that 10 years from now we're going to look back and think, no, 20 years. Do you remember when it was like that? Do you remember when it was like these segments and there was undergraduates and there was community and that was what there was? It's going to seem like when we had 3 television channels. Remember that? And remember that when we used to do that? That's what it's going to seem like, because higher ed is going the way of streaming. So, as a result of that, there's a college enrollment crash, and it's not, we're not having a crash, but it's not, it's just, I'm going to just say that again. It isn't just at Stephens. We have our, just talk about that. But it's the market. There's a reason that small private colleges are closing. 2 more announced this week that they're closing. And I actually had a list, and as I was going back through my presentation, I thought, oh, that's going to terrify them, right? So I took it out. Enough is enough. But the fact of the matter is that small, private, non-first top-tier institutions everywhere are challenged. It's been coming for decades. I was a faculty member a long time ago. I remember going to a conference at NYU and having one of the speakers say, there are X number of thousands of small private institutions in this country, and 25% of them are going to be closed in like 10 years. And because this is the faculty member I went back to my campus and I charged into my president's office, which you didn't do, and told them that we needed to do something because we were going to close. He was like, okay, just thank you, good. Right. But the fact of the matter is that, everything is timing. So we're not going to close, but they might. So there is an enrollment challenge. This is a summary of some of the stories that are out there. Colleges face reckoning as plummeting birth rate worsens enrollment declines. Who wrote these? This is like Armageddon headlines. But the fact is that we are. Demographics, it's been going down. It's been going down. We know there's not as many babies. I'm hoping COVID's going to turn that around. Nobody had anything else to do. Not for a while. But it's just started. It's supposed to really hit like a cliff in 2025. So as the number there's fewer high school students graduating, there's fewer of them actually going to college. Community colleges, there's a story out there this week that says that 1/3 of community college students have disappeared. Because community college students are the ones who are doing the Google online certificate programs for free so they can go get a job, and they don't need community college. So that whole sector is completely disrupted, which is a huge part of our transfer population, which is an increasing part of our enrollment every fall. Many young adults choose work over college. No, what we're talking about is enrollment falls and colleges close. A surprising number of new ones are opening. They don't look anything like us. They don't look anything. The ones that are opening, the new schools that are, the new projects that are opening, they don't look like the traditional model of higher education. This is what I was talking about earlier. Who needs college anyway? You don't need to go to college. You know, the Chamber of Commerce here has a campaign that talks about how, you know, and one of the vice presidents in town gets up at this meeting and says, my son decided when he graduated last year that he wasn't going to, he didn't need to go to college, and he went and got a job somewhere in town, and last week he bought himself a brand new red, some kind of a car. I was like, and everybody's like, oh, that's so great. I thought, my God, that little car, that car's gonna take him around his block over and over and over, because that's where he's gonna spend his life if he doesn't go to college, right? But oh my gosh, this is so great. At the Chamber of Commerce in this town. I was like, excuse me. Of course I would, you know, Stephen's opinionated. And right. Yeah, right? Yeah. So really quick, my mother used to say to me all the time my whole life, you always think you're right. And I would say, oh, who doesn't think they're right? If I thought I was wrong, I would change my mind. Handful of colleges are providing training in a way that consumers want it fast. We're going to talk about that. Stevens is going to remain Stevens on my watch. Stevens is going to remain Stevens. We are going to hang on to our DNA. We're going to hang on to our traditions and our values and our history because it's what we have in the market. It is what makes us unique in the market. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to have to change the way we think about meeting the needs of students, because today's students are not you. And 5 years from now, those students are not going to be the students we have today. We have always done that at Stevens, always done that at Stevens. But we're just going to have to do it a little more energetically in the next year or two. Profit competitors, cheap and quick alternatives. We had a partnership actually with Outlier, which is the online, we will go back to using it. Outlier is, anybody know Masterclass? Okay, Masterclass, for years I looked at Masterclass. I was like, why aren't they in the higher ed space? Well, they are. They were working on it behind the scenes, and they now have a phenomenal program. It is highly produced, highly professional, beautifully done, driven by AI, and we'll talk about AI, with the best faculty in the world, literally. But it's incredibly driven by algorithms. It's incredibly driven by what we know about how students today think and learn and their attention spans. You should look at it. You should look at it. Because what they've done is now they have a catalog of courses that are basically liberal arts courses. It's basically the catalog of gen ed courses at institutions across the country. And typically, you know, by credit, institutions charge $600 a college credit. It's about right. You can get a 3-credit class at that institution with the best faculty in the world, driven by you with individualized learning, increasingly driven by AI, for $400. Quality, status, names of the faculty, incredible individualized learning, individualized assessment at about, quarter the cost. Hard to compete. But we will. Google, shoot me now. Google has a robust curriculum of online learning, teaching and learning, where you can earn certificate programs virtually for free. The good news is, which will change, that's not good news. That's very selfish. But the good news is that people start it and don't. It's like Coursera. People start it and quit. I don't know about any of you, but I have at least, a dozen Coursera courses in my library that I've started. And, I was very intent for a day or two. It seemed like a good idea. That's the issue. That's the problem, right? We start well attention. It's like a diet or going to the gym. It's like that. We're going to find ways to change that, and they are. But Google's the same way. They have literally millions of people around the world starting their programs and not completing them. But if you complete them, Kent Walker, the Senior Vice President for Global Affairs, says, in our own hiring, we will now treat these new career certificates as the equivalent of a 4-year degree in our hiring. Think about that. And they're free. So, and they, they tout it, they walk the talk. And so community colleges, that's what they're competing with. So no, for everybody, not just everybody, enrollments are trending in the wrong direction. Wait a minute, that's not true. For our sector, public and private, small, non-flagship, non-tier 1 enrollments are heading in the wrong direction and have been for a number of years. But they are continuing to decline for all the reasons I'm talking about. In Missouri, let's talk about Missouri. I won't read you all these numbers, but enrollment in Missouri has declined 23% since 2010. Okay, by a quarter since 2010. So in the last decade plus. And again, we haven't hit the cliff. We have not hit the cliff in 2025. Between 1970 and 2010, it increased 141%, but it continues to be on the decline. And our particular challenge, which many of you have heard me say before, so we have this environment, all this swirl, all this competition, all this, oops, I'm sorry. And then we have our tier of type of institution. And then we're in Missouri. And then we have, not entirely, our conservatory is co-ed, but our legacy program in the world, a women's college, is a women's college. So you take those numbers and you say, okay, 16 million undergraduates, 3.5 million attend private schools. There's our funnel. Okay, 16 million, 3.5 million private schools. Of that, about 2 million, 56%, it might be a little higher, identify as women. That is identify as women. And so then there's the whole question of students who are identified as women, who are not identified as female at birth, transgender, all of that, but about 2%. So let's stick with this. 56% identify as women. Of the 1.9 million eligible to enroll at Stevens Women's College, 2%, used to be 3%, 2% say they would ever consider a women's college. There's your funnel, right? And then we got 38,000 who are in that funnel. And the question is, of the 24, 28 maybe, but women's colleges still left in the country, how many of them are going to choose, not Stevens, because that's the next question, Missouri? How many of you are not from Missouri, and not living in Missouri? Okay, so you get this. Okay, so. Really good question. Why do we have to stay in Missouri? Why can't we go to Texas? Right? I'm in.
Why don't we not in Texas?
Oh, we do. Well, no. The question is, why don't we recruit in Texas? We do recruit in Texas, but it's no easier to talk this profile of a student from Texas to Missouri than it is. Well, it's maybe a little easier. We have a better luck. But here's the thing. So let me just show you. So here are
I get it. Why
No, right. I know you do. I know you do. I know you do. I know you do. I'm speaking to the choir a little bit, but again, context. These are the stories that were in the national press about Missouri in the last 2 weeks. Okay, we're defunding libraries. Here's why. I don't care. The University of Missouri system cuts diversity statements from its job posting. Moon Choi, the head of the system, announced that there will be no more any kind of inclusive DEI considerations in any hiring, including faculty in any program in the system. Missouri House advances the bill that allows guns on buses. Who thought, oh my gosh, we don't have a law that says we can have a gun on a bus? Let's go. And inside churches and synagogues. Okay? And finally, my favorite. This is my and it's saying something that it's my favorite. A Missouri lawmaker defended child marriage, saying that kids he knows who got married at age 12 are still married. I have my family calling me up and saying things like, "Are you okay? Are you still here? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I love it here." But it's crazy pants, to use an expression. I'm sorry, whatever your politics are, and I'm not assuming that we all share the same politics, I bet you couldn't even guess my politics based on what I've just said. But this is crazy pants. And let me tell you, those headlines have an effect. Students who come to women's colleges and their families, now, I don't have data on this, so this is just intuition and experience, tend to be looking for an accepting, strong environment for their student. They tend to be sometimes a little bit square peg, round hole kind of kids.
Yes, we're all that way.
And ambitious, and the families want them to be in a place where they are accepted exactly the way they are, seen for who they are, and help to become their best persons, right? That's what we do. So if you are, name the state, and you are looking, and you happen to Google Missouri, and you find out that we're in favor of 12-year-old child marriage, you might think, I don't know. So again, the barriers or the hurdles. Once we get students here, I'm telling you, students, when they get here, they're like, oh my God, this place is so great. They are. It's, you know, it's like a gut reaction. They're like, oh my God, this is where I belong. If they belong here, it's not for everybody, but for a lot of them. If we can get them here, we got them. It's getting them here that is a challenge for all the reasons we talked about. But every time I see one of those headlines, all I can think of is, there is another 2,500 parents who are like, I don't think so. It matters. There's a map, which I also, because I'm not sure about the data, that shows the impact of political positioning on college choice, and which side, liberals and conservatives, and who doesn't, who decides not to come. And Missouri's on that list. Missouri's on that list, actually, and we think, well, maybe, we can appeal to the sort of the conservative, which is great. I mean, they're all good. Even some of these, for people who consider themselves conservative, culturally, socially, faith-based conservative, and we have many, many, many students here who come from those backgrounds and continue to be very much aligned with those values. Even they find 12-year-old marriage hard. And that guy, I mean, he's been around for a long time. Okay, this is a new one. This just came out this week. There's an institution that is sending out letters to all and saying, you're accepted. Congratulations, we're going to give you this much money. People are like, did I apply? I mean, seriously, some of these kids apply to 30 colleges, right? Common App, check, 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 check. So they don't know. They're like, I was like, maybe that's not a bad idea. There's like this big thing about, oh my heavens, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, I don't know, maybe. So lots of new experiments. Okay, so that's getting them here. When they get here, the challenges are different than they've been, in my experience, in higher ed. It's like, Alice in Wonderland said, ever so much more so. It's like that. It's like, adolescents, not just women, but statistically more often women, have stress and anxiety and mental health challenges and emotional challenges. And we've always been extraordinary at Stevens in helping them become their best selves, their healthy, balanced, grounded best selves. But it's very different since COVID. It just is. And one of the things that I think this is the next slide, but one of the things that has happened is that right now, we have on campus those students who pretty much spent their sophomore and junior and senior year in high school in bed, like at home, online, earning inflated, grade inflation is, because who's going to flunk a kid who's at home in COVID? And so the grade inflation across the country is pretty significant in the last couple of years, during the COVID years, and once it sort of gets up there, then there's a sort of pipeline expectation of that. It's really hard to overcome it. So right now, once they get here, we have, and no more standardized tests to get, no more ACT, no more SAT. Nobody's doing that, and nobody's going back to it. 80%, it's over. That's over, which is okay because it was quite the system for the College Board. But that means that there is no standardized evaluation at this point when students arrive. And we have their grade points from their high schools. We had earlier this year, this semester, I saw the list of the grade point averages of our incoming students or our accepted students, and they were like really high. Right? And I thought, well, that's really good, but where are the B students? Like, what? And went to Durrell, our Vice President of Enrollment Marketing, and he said, that's who applies. That's what we got. That's what we got. And it's because kids are graduating out of high school with 3.8s and 3.7s and 3.5s because these are the kids who are coming out of COVID. Is it going to self-correct? I don't know. But what it means is that right now, students, not everybody, but a significant number of students are arriving on our campus unprepared academically to do college work. And those of you who are in education know this is happening. And so we do a really good job of meeting students where they are. But nonetheless, academic challenge, academic can be overwhelming. That leads to stress, that leads to anxiety, that leads to really challenging in terms of retention. See, I knew. Don't get depressed. We got this. Right? We do. I mean, I'm like, and another thing, but you know what? In a minute I'm going to get to, and here's what we're going to do about it. So don't worry. There's the mental health. Yeah, that's a new, from Gallup, that's a new report that just came out. It's a very compelling photo, isn't it? It's not, it's a man, but that's okay, we have men. Okay, so here's where we are. What does that mean for Stevens? Stevens is holding its own at a level that, so you can see that in 2016, my goal for Stevens is that we were 1,000 students. We're not going to go back to 2,400 or 2,000 students. We're just not, I can't anticipate that we're going to do that, except online. We might build out you'll see adult and online. But here's where we are. So, we were 779, 739, 753. We're sort of in that period. We're not at 300. But we're certainly not at 1,000, and I don't want to say we're holding on by our fingernails, but there's a fingernail thing, kind of, around trying to maintain, especially as things change. So, but... Is that graduate and... Yes, that's everybody. That's everybody. Now, one of the things you have to remember is that our graduate programs are the most revenue-producing programs on campus, by far. There's no comparison. So when we talk about students, I'm telling you what, more graduate students is really valuable to everything else we do. Our PA program is the most, Dane, our CFO is like, yep, that's right, Diane, that's right, we need more of those. Our PA program is the most revenue producing, profitable program by far on campus. So those are the things that we do that, I don't want to say that allow us to do the other things we do, but it's all of a picture. And I love that picture of our students. Look at that. If that's not y'all, I don't know who it is, right? That was on International Women's Day out in front of Searsom, and we had cupcakes. And you got a cupcake if you posed in front of Searsom for a picture. And I thought it was going to be a hard sell. No, it was not a hard sell. They were dancing and, right. I know, I love it. Look at them. And then the news came and did interviews of them and talking about a women's college. I'll take questions in a bit, Diane. And so they were like, Stevens women are strong and opinionated, and I was like, yes. Okay, and then there's this. Okay, I am going to spend a little bit of time on AI. How many of you have been on Chat GPT or Dolly? Okay, so when the internet got here in the late 90s, it had been around for a while in Department of Defense but in scientific, sort of research. But all of a sudden it sort of emerged and we were all like, oh, look at that. And I was a journalist at the time and I was writing for ABC News and for the Christian Science Monitor about internet culture. And I was like, you can buy dog food on the internet. It was like that. And higher education was like, you cannot use Google to do search because you need to go to the library and that's cheating, right? Okay? Fast forward. Exponentially greater challenge. First thing that happened when ChatGPT came out, Chatbot came out and Dolly came out, is institutions all over the country, big, top-tier institutions were like, we're not going to let them use that. That's cheating. And I thought, we didn't learn a thing, not a thing, because this horse is out of that barn and this train is out of that station, and our students and every one of you are going to use AI, ChatGPT, to do the work that you are now doing and that our students are not doing. And as an institution where information is our currency, that's what we got, right? Teaching and learning is, I have this information. I went to graduate school for 9 years. I have this information, and you don't. And I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to pick it up and put it in your head, and then I'm going to test this, and then you're going to give it back to me in the form I say you need to, and then I'm going to see how you did, and then I'm going to say you're educated. I mean, that's crude and simplistic, but sort of. Like, this is the information, I own it, I'm going to give it to you, you're going to pay me to give it to you, I'm going to prove that I gave it to you, and then we're good. That's the transaction. That's not what happens in higher education in terms of the college experience, but that's the very simplistic transactional exchange. AI is going to disrupt that completely because AI draws on billions, literally, of data points that it is able to combine in billions, trillions of ways to give you the answers to the questions you ask in as much depth, eventually, as you ask for, instantaneously, in a way that is absolutely current and absolutely factually, that's not true, that is more factually accurate than the human being can be, because it can process more information. One of the things that the argument about AI right now is that it's biased and it's incomplete, and that is all true. But this is the Model T version of AI. This is like, anybody remember Netscape? Remember dial-up? Like, remember that? Right? Remember the internet when there's like in your little Apple computer was this big and the type was green, right? And you were like, oh my God, you can buy dog food on the internet. Remember that? Late 90s, 25 years ago. That's where we are with AI right now. It's like, people are like, it's biased. Of course it's biased. It's drawing on a database of data points and information that's limited, AI learns. It's iterative in a scale we can't imagine. My son's getting his PhD in AI. I've been hearing about AI for 5 years, and I keep saying, when's this going to hit? When's this going to hit? So, so this is Dolly. We teach design, graphic design, marketing, advertising, photography, film, right? Dolly is an AI system where you type in a prompt, and it, in the count of 10, produces images, 4 images, based on your prompt. Right now, you own them because they are a unique draw on all data points into a unique original document based on your prompt. So right now, you own the copyright for those. And you can print them out, and you can use them in your advertising, and you can use them in your marketing, and you own them. So these are just some prompts. So smiling students at a women's college in the Midwest. See the pictures of the women at the top? Those aren't real women. Those are not people. Those are images that Dolly produced for me in about 15, 20 seconds that we can use in our advertising. Because I don't have to pay anybody for them. I don't have to pay Shutterstock. I don't have to pay a photographer. It's not using the images of our own students, which has had some ethical considerations over the years. These are completely fabricated human beings who look just like human beings, and if I don't like the way they look, I can type in more diverse. I can type in blue eyes. I can type in taller. You know? Scary, but true. Okay, this is one white and one black French bulldog puppies nuzzling, just to make you feel good. You know, you're having a bad day or you're at work and you just need a little thing, a moment. You know, you can create those. Spring wildflowers in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe. Okay, so you can also pull, I have a whole collection. There's a New Yorker cartoonist that I love. And so when I'm in a bad mood, I type in puppy cartoons in the style of Roz Chast. I get 4 of them, original. She would be mad, I'm sure. Vermont fall landscape in the style of Andrew Wyeth. These are created by AI instantaneously based on my prompts. Think about that. What does that mean for marketing and advertising? My son is a filmmaker. Anybody see Marcel Lachelle? That's my son's movie. I know, right? Nominated for Academy Award. How about that? Right. And he is, oh, thank you, I'll tell him. But he says 10 years, there will be no, his job will be over. There won't be writers who produce. There won't be, because this is all gonna, the unions are gearing up for it. So, ChatGPT. This is the same thing, only in text. And I am going to, so you type in a prompt. So these are the prompts. What should colleges be doing now to be prepared in 2008 for an education marketplace infused by AI? So can you click on that? Okay. Oh, never mind. Okay, so here's what I did. It's okay. Type that in sometime, and what you will get is an essay about the things that we should be teaching in higher education in a world where AI is going to take care of the content. And you know what it says? It says we should be teaching all the things we teach. It says we should be teaching collaboration and teamwork and creativity and critical thinking and negotiation. It talks about ethics. It talks about philosophy. It talks, right? It talks about ways of thinking about being in the world, things that are not generated around content, facts.
Morals and ethics.
Morals and ethics, that's exactly right. What can colleges teach that AI cannot? This, 2 things. One is, as I just said, AI is really early in its early stages, and so this is not the Bible or the litmus test of what we should do, but I will tell you something. It speaks to what the world out there in terms of data and in terms of information thinks right now is still the purview of who? Us. And the great news about it is that no one does that better than we do. So what we need to start to think about doing is how to hang on to that and do it better than anybody else and come to understand how to use AI as a tool in that process. So our faculty are like, whoa, they can't, whatever. And it's like, no, what you're going to do is you're going to teach our students to iterate what they want to know. Because you only get back from AI what you ask it for. You know, garbage in, garbage out, remember all that? You only get the answer to the questions you ask. And so when they get back, they may never have to write another essay again. I know that breaks your heart, me too. They also don't write script, and in 2 generations, they won't be able to read it, just so you know. But what they will be able to do is to look at a piece of writing and be much more critical, much more incisive, much more thoughtful about what it does and what it doesn't do, and then how to articulate what they want or what it should include, and then test that again. It's a different way of being in the world. It's a different way of thinking about the world, but it is a skill set and a way of being that is going to become critical to what it means to be a Stevens graduate. And we need to start thinking about that now, because guess what? I know it's really early, but the kids we are bringing in the fall will graduate in 4 or 5 years, right? This is changing at light speed. In 4 or 5 years, those are going to be skill sets and ways of thinking about the world that they're going to have. Higher education has to, we're supposed to iterate 10 years out, not 4, but that's where we are. So, higher ed disrupted. I'm not going to go through all this. Really quickly, just more competition, institutional control of higher education is eroding. AI will absolutely accelerate that. It's the same thing as it talks about what's going to happen in higher ed is what happened to your neighborhood grocery store and to newspapers. I used to be in newspapers. I used to argue all the time, no one will ever stop wanting to have a newspaper. Don't worry. They're always going to want to feel that paper. Wrong. Right. The streaming, 3 channels. My dad would be like, Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it is. April 10th, right? And everybody's like, that's the way it is, because Walter said so, right? Not so much. And higher education, my professor said that, and we're going to have to go with the argument, but AI says you're wrong. Right. Knowledge economy based on outcomes, the experience of, the process of, we're moving toward outcomes. We're moving toward, well, what's that going to do for me? And that goes back to, you don't need a college education, you can buy a new car. And the dominance of time-bound degrees. Different kind of education. We have just-in-case education. That's what higher ed is now. It's like, you're going to have a degree. You're going to use it sometime. It doesn't matter if you don't have a job as soon as you get out of college, because it's okay, because how many times have I said, no one can ever take that away from you. Your college degree is a train ticket into wherever you want to go, and if you don't get on the train today, that's okay, because you'll always have it. You have a degree when you want it. Higher education is shifting to, instead of just in case, it's just in time. You need to know this now? We're going to teach it to you now, because everything's going to change, and in 5 years, the job you've got, it's going to go away. So, you know what? You have skill sets you need, and we're going to get them to you, and then when that changes, you're going to do it again. Things are changing from, again, just in case you need this degree, to just in time, we're going to get you prepared to do the next thing. And it is not an unreasonable strategy when you think about the change in our market. So, okay, now you know where we are. It's really fun. It is, but it's a lot. So, what are we going to do? How are we doing it? We are creating relevant programs based on our strengths. So instead of we are incorporating what we already do. We're not talking about cutting programs. We're talking about incorporating what we do. We just announced last week, we got a lot of media for it, a content creation program. A content creation degree program, which is, guess what? Writing and video and marketing and, writing. But it's not each of those things individually, because what people are hiring are content creators. It's social media, it's messaging, it's all of the things that those skill sets produce, but it's not one thing. It's all of those things. We used to call it multimedia, but, right? The more things change, the more they stay the same. But, so this is a news story that ran this week. So we are thinking about how to do what we do and situate it in ways that are more relevant. This is big. This is a big thing. Our WISER program, Women in STEM Research, is launched, we just announced it, University of Missouri partnering with us to bring women into STEM. This is more partnerships, breaking down the barriers between institutions, collaborating. And Brandon Moore is one of our faculty members, has very strong relationships with Mizzou and the vet school. We're going to use the equestrian program as the basis for that. The equestrian program is incredibly strong. We continue to be committed to it. We're working on ways to improve our facilities, to think about how to make it, oh my gosh, revenue generating. Wouldn't that be something? We're working on it. But it is very much a part of this long-term plan. It's to develop and prepare women in STEM to get into vet school, which is the hardest school to get into. Absolutely, and to do research. It is a really exciting program, 4-year, identify 10 students, stellar students, every year, so over time we'll have 40 students in the program. It's independent studies with faculty, summer research fellowships, one-on-one research work, working with Mizzou faculty and students to do research, to do conference presentation, to do publication. We sort of tested it last year with 3 students. Brandon's been working with them for 3 years. And in May, and I always say 100%, all 3 of them got into vet school. Wow. Yes. This is the future of Stevens College. It is doing what we do extraordinarily well, based on outcomes, in partnership, strengthening and leveraging our assets, like the stables, like our horses, to meet the needs and the goals and the ambitions of tomorrow's students, today's students. Cohort learning. So you know about Mission Promise Kept. Here's another strategy. Living in learning communities. Yay, Searcy House Plan. For today, we have a program, Mission Promise Kept, for women veterans. We are identifying cohorts of students that Stevens can serve better than anybody else. I've been talking about this since 2013. We finally hired, this past year, we hired Elizabeth Herrera, an amazing, energetic, ambitious, driven woman who's going to get this done. It's wraparound services. It's meeting students where they are. So we provide childcare. We provide babysitting. We provide transportation. We did the research that said, what are the barriers to a vet? Because women start and stop all the time in higher ed. So what are the barriers? And we are going to meet them. And so sometimes we have a baby in my office who comes to stay, and Lita's that's other duties as assigned, right? And she is gorgeous, and we love her to death, and she's amazing. And her mom, so grateful, because she is going to finish her college degree. The VA, it's a partnership with the VA and Mizzou's legal clinic. They have a vets legal clinic, legal program. It is not competition. It is working with all of the vet institutions and nonprofit vet serving institutions or organizations in our community. And it will grow. We're starting small. There's the floor in in Columbia Hall. But this is another strategy to bring students in, to do what we do better than anybody else, which is to meet students where they are and make sure that they have the resources that they need to succeed. Nursing program, yes. It's finally got traction. It took a couple years. Clinical programs take 3 years, but I was like, come on. But no, we're good. We're going to be full this fall. Partnership with Boone Hospital. Co-owned, jointly owned program. Our students are in the hospital from the first day. They walk around in scrubs that say Stevens Boone. Because why? Boone thinks it's a pipeline. They need nurses. And all of the students who are graduating, that will graduate our first class this year, they all have jobs. They have lots of job offers. Some of them are being paid already as students to keep them. Conservatory for the Performing Arts is proof positive that Stevens College is nimble and is able to figure out ways for it to do what it needs to do. We have 2 units. One of them is co-ed, and one of them is the Women's College. The Women's College at Stevens College, got our arms around it. In my world, it's sacred. Conservatory needed to have men. There's 2 separate legal entities. There's no crossover, Title IX. There's no crossover, but we do have a co-ed program on campus. It was a test case to see whether we could manage multiple academic units meeting the needs of different students without, again, keeping our arms around the women's college. And it turns out we can. I said this last year because it was new, but I had a student come up to me. I thought, oh, the women are going to be really worried. They're going to be really upset. They weren't upset. And in fact, as long as the boys are not in their classes. The women's college, there's no boys in the classes. It's not like it used to be with where you had boys, When I got here, I was like, somebody said something about the boys. I was like, what boys? What do you mean? I thought, I just moved here from New York to be the president of a women's college, and now you tell me there's boys? And they're like, oh, we're a women's college with a few good men. I was like, that's like being kind of pregnant. What does that even mean? Right, no, they're apprentices. I'm like, they look like boys. We had to stop doing that, but now we have 2 units, academic units, where it's absolutely all good, and it's working really well. And I had a student come up and says, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not upset about having those guys on campus. They're cute. I was like, so we're growing the programs that we have through partnerships. The elementary, the school, the children's school is growing leaps and bounds. We're trying to figure out finding space to expand it. We're working on a partnership with the Columbia Public Schools for early childhood education and perhaps secondary education and certification, thanks to Leslie Willey, our Vice President of Academic Affairs, who knows everybody and is a just genius at curriculum and development and how to make those kinds of programs work. So, yes. And is this going to work? Com Design is another example of a unique program that brings together so many of the things that we do, that gives students incredible amounts of hands-on learning experience, learning by doing. So here we go. I'm hoping that will work. Oh, voice. It's okay if it doesn't work. I'm running late. I could voice it. I don't sound like Grace though. So what she's saying basically is that Com Design gives students an opportunity to learn in various ways, sort of not pick and choose, but to have a synthesis of different skill sets around design, around messaging, around marketing, whether it's in advertising, social media. There's Bethany Irons, our amazing chair who put this together with Scott Taylor. So it is a combination of, it includes business. Most of our programs do. And so what they're talking about is how they not only are learning these skills, but have multiple opportunities to have real-world experiences and real-life clients, which is a critical part of what we do. Grace has an amazing, she makes jewelry, among other things. She has a pop-up shop that has like everything from t-shirts to earrings. It's over at Susie's. Please, you should go take a look. But that's basically what this says. And we have some work to do on our audio. So, again, an example of integration of what we do. And we're building our athletics program because guess what? Yay, Laura. Laura Nunnally is our current athletics director because our athletics director resigned and we're sort of still searching. So she goes to every game and game management has become her new skill set. Other duties as assigned. But the basketball team, the basketball team beat Columbia College. You know, when that happened, I was like, well, my work here is done. Columbia College is a great institution. I'm very good friends with the president. We're talking about partnerships. So put that on a shelf for a minute. All that's true. Columbia College just killed me about how they were about us in terms of our athletics. One time in our basketball team, we were ahead of them at halftime, and the basketball coach made all of the athletes go out and do 100 push-ups at halftime on the gym floor because we were beating them by 6 points at halftime. And I was at that point the president of our athletics conference. So I went and registered a complaint about the fact, and because I was the president, I listened to myself. So, I know, so man, it was my goal to beat Columbia College. So when we did, and it was big time in this town. People were like, shut up. It never happened. We never beat them. So there. And guess what? Winning, guess what that generates? Enrollment. Yes, it does. Right. So I bought all the students, all the athletes that shirt that says, we believed we could, so we did. And there's the date of when we did it. So I know, right? So guess what? Every school on the planet uses athletics for enrollment. But if you don't have a winning record, that's hard, right? And so now we do. New partnerships, again. We're leveraging our partnerships. We are reaching out and developing. And it's amazing if you show up with a good idea, how often people say yes first. And so I'm always ready to go. That's how we had a nursing program. I showed up and said, I have an idea. We should start a nursing program one morning. And he was like, okay, say more about that. He also happened to be a member of our board of trustees, which was intentional. So he's a very good person. But anyway, Kyndryl used to be sort of IBM, and it was locally, and it was sort of absorbed. And Kyndryl is an international tech company, huge data systems, and we're working with them on projects for us to do data science, data management, and internships. Vertex Partnership Academy is a good friend of mine, has started a series of charter schools in New York City and the Bronx. They're IB schools, incredibly well-funded, international baccalaureate schools. They're incredibly well-funded, and so we are working with them on partnerships to do joint projects with them. The Savannah River Ecology Laboratory, one of the reasons it's been a little hectic this week is that a team of us just finished a grant proposal to NASA. Women's colleges, the Women's College Coalition has figured out a way, has lobbied, that's how we figured out a way. We hired a lobbyist at a lot of money to lobby Congress to carve out resources, funds for women's colleges the way they do for HBCUs. And they did it. So, I know, right? I was like, so you get what you asked for. So there's a grant right now, the first one, where it's up to $1.25 million for STEM research, for bringing women into STEM, and the only people who can apply for it are women's colleges. They're going to give 10 grants, and there are 24 women's colleges eligible to apply. So, you know, the odds are pretty good. And we are the only non-sectarian independent women's college in the Midwest. So I keep saying that. Look at us, right? And it has to be done through an intersectional lens. Nobody's more intersectional than Stevens. So, new markets, workforce development. We're developing a program in workforce development. Now, strategic plan. Where does that all bring us? Stevens College is working on a new strategic plan. It's timing. It's amazing. Our 5-year strategic plan expired, if you will. It was 6 years because of COVID, and we accomplished almost everything on it. One thing we didn't do, a Center for Teaching and Learning, because we decided for a bunch of reasons it wasn't the right time. But you know what? We did all those things. We did everything we said we were going to do, and enrollment's still a problem. So we're looking at it differently. So what are we doing? We spent 6 months of research, benchmarking, presentations. I took the senior staff, a big group of the senior staff, to Maine. We got on a plane to Maine to go see Unity College, which you should take a look at, which has disrupted and blown itself up and increased its enrollment from 400 to 4,000 in 2 years. And it looked amazing online, and then it's just like anything. You get close up, and it's chaos. But we went and we learned an enormous amount about what we wanted to do and what we didn't want to do and how we could go about achieving some of the things that they've done, and without, frankly, with a lot more community collaboration, discussion, bringing people along, and coming to consensus about what's the right next steps. But we've had community conversations, we have working groups, the senior leadership team each has its own working group in various areas of responsibility, from finance to academics. Leslie has had so many conversations, we've had so many conversations with faculty to figure out what we might be able to do. The only non-negotiable is committed to the college's core mission and values. We have to expand the profile of the students we serve, and we have to find new ways to diversify our revenue streams. Those are the 3 things. Those are the only non-negotiables. Everything else is open. These are the institutions that we took a look at. You might recognize some of the names. MIT has a new program where they are producing the world's best content, online content, well-produced. It's an outlier model, and they're putting it together and selling it or leasing it to other institutions. So we would be able to put together a catalog of online programs taught by top-tier faculty and institutions and give our students the option of taking those classes online, because we don't have the capacity among our own faculty to do all that and everything else we do. Critical questions: who are we here to serve? How do we align our institutional priorities? And how do we create an institutional structure that lets us do that? Students first. One of the things critical, remember, is that institutions, not just us, every institution, operates from the assumption that we do what we do, and what we do works for us as an organization. The model of higher education, 15 weeks a semester, a month off, 15 weeks a semester, 3 months off, 5 classes, 5 classes at a time. Faculty teach certain numbers of credits. You have to have 150 minutes a week of a class in order for it to count for accreditation. All of that is out of the industrial age. It was a way of monetizing saying what education needed to look like and unifying it across the industry, if you will. And so it worked for a long time. Everything I've talked about already says, not so much. So what's best for our students and their learning? We have to think about students at all ages when you talk about grad programs, all ages, right? Not just 18 to 22. And every student's learning experience, teaching excellence, diverse perspectives, applied and immersive learning, and professional preparation. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are finishing our DEI plan. We've been working on it for a year. There's been a huge amount of community and campus involvement. We just had an all-campus meeting in this room where everybody sat around the tables with students, faculty, and staff. Thank you to Shannon, other duties as assigned. She's been very involved in directing and leading that initiative, and we now have a plan that integrates the DEI lens into everything we do. It will come to the board for adoption in June. These are the things we need to think about. I know I'm rushing a little bit. Those are the questions, right? So, how do you learn something new? When you learn something new, did you pick 5 different subjects, topics, and come to them for an hour 3 times a week? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, for 15 weeks. Is that how you learn something new? No, that's not how you learn something new. It's not how you learn something new when you're in graduate school. Graduate school, you talk about the things you care about. You are immersed in what you care about. You're immersed in your topic. You research it. You discuss it. You produce it. You focus. Think about what I said about COVID kids. The attention span is like nanosecond. It's just, and the stress that they feel about having 5 things going on at 15 credits, 5 classes, going from one class to another, and 5 different faculty members, and trying to figure out what needs to be, and the scheduling, and this. And you all did that. I know you all did that, but you also didn't spend your adolescence in COVID. And so we have to think about, what do students need? Again, what's the model at Stevens College? And then what do we retain that we need to keep? And then how, not if we deliver Stevens, but how do we do that? And you start with students. You don't look at, well, what do we do? And that works for us, and our finances are set up for that, and faculty are really used to that, works for them. What about students? And that's the question we have, and we don't have an answer yet. We're doing market research. We've hired a national marketing firm to find out what students think about how they want to learn. So what if we let students focus? Anybody ever heard of Colorado College? I know where it is. Colorado College has, in 1968, adopted a program, a curriculum that they do 1 class at a time. It's 3.5 weeks of 1 class. It's immersive, it's all around, it's wrap around, and because it doesn't butt up against or doesn't cross schedule with any other class, it is experiential. It offers opportunities for field work. They travel. They have a day where they do nothing but immersive learning, because it's one thing at a time. Then they have 5 days off, yoo-hoo, and then they do another one. There are 4 blocks in a semester, and then for us, we would give the students the option of taking some of those online classes, because they want online classes. Is it different from what we do? In scheduling it is. Is it different in terms of curriculum? Not so much, because of the way we teach. You think about the equestrian program and the marketing program and the nursing program where they're in the hospital day 1, or the education program where they're in the classroom day 1. It's in our DNA already, but it presents it differently, and again, student lens. There it is, 1968. I encourage you to go and look at the websites. Cornell College is another one. It's in Iowa, 1978. We've been interacting with the administration there. Leslie set it up so that they're going to have a chance, our faculty will have a chance to talk to their faculty who love it. Love it. And interestingly enough, we were worried about the science faculty, and that program seems to be the most passionate about it. Chemistry 101, this is just, I'm starting to realize about the block plan, it still astonishes me how much you can learn in a week. Coming into class Monday, my forensic knowledge had pretty much consisted of whatever tidbits I picked up from the occasional CSI. Needless to say, our first task of solving a Sherlock Holmes mystery seemed daunting. Provided with the story, Sherlock's chemical test, and the evidence we needed to recreate the crime, each group went to work in the lab. After an hour, and much to our surprise, we had formulated a plausible theory, presented our conclusions, solving mysteries ranging from a death in a limestone quarry to a daring prison escape. This is Chemistry 101 at Colorado College. The difference is obvious. You can do this in 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day for 3.5 weeks in a way that you can't 50 minutes 3 times a week, even with a lab. So what if we required an intentional mix of classroom and online learning, immersive, theoretical and career preparation, flexible scheduling, leveraging our faculty strengths? Nobody is better. When you think about what AI can do, nobody is better than our faculty at immersive learning, of mentoring and being there and solving problems and critical thinking and being in connection with our students. There's no comparison to what happens at Stevens College, certainly from anywhere else. It's what we do. So this would leverage our strengths. And immersive learning environments can also generate revenue. Yay! So things that we could do in terms of the Creative Hub and Creative Inc. and Susie's Online. Do you know that Susie's, how many of you bought something at Susie's? Susie's is online. Susie's is, thank you, Laura. Susie's, thank you, Laura. Laura did this. Our students did this under Laura's guidance. Susie's is a student operation, start to finish, completely from designing the store, they create, they design, they produce, they create all of the content, all of the fashions are student design. They run the store, they do all the marketing, they do all the, with Dane's help, they do the finances. So we are the support team. But Susie's is such a good example of an immersive learning experience that you don't get anywhere else. There's not another college store on the planet where everything in the store is designed by the students. Designed, produced, marketed, advertised, sold, all of it. That's what we're talking about. And the responsibility-centered management, which is about having each individual program have a different kind of budget accountability so that everybody is responsible for the net revenues that come out of their program. That's a little scary for some folks here, and we're sort of working through what that might look like, but it's a component part of it. And then again, stop missing out on adult learners. Stevens College has been ahead of its time forever. In 1945, we taught women how to fly. We had air, people have suggested to me, we should start the aviation program again. I literally had somebody come say that to me like, Dianne, this would be great. I was like, yeah, 20 years from now, you should do that, because I won't be here. 5 years maybe. Right, but you know what? Every generation, this institution has done what needed to be done for it to be innovative, relevant. We didn't always get credit for it, as we know, but the living and learning communities, which became standard across institutions across higher education, if we weren't the first, it was because, well, we were the first, as far as I know, but we went always out there in front. Again, airplanes. When I found out about the airport and the airplanes, I was like, that is exactly who we are. We are at a turning point. Higher education's at a turning point, Stevens is at a turning point. I know this may not have been the presentation you expected, because a lot of times this is like, and another thing, and all of that is true. But my goal and my obligation is to bring our community along to thinking about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and how our commitment is to the essence of what Stevens is and was to all of you, so that 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, and 20 years from now, another president will stand up in front of this room and talk about what we do, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and we will have met their needs when they were students here in the same way that this institution met yours. It's disruptive. It is disruptive, and it's challenging. And we are in the middle of the year-long process of developing it, and we will take a plan to the Board of Trustees in June. I want everybody to I had them stand up at the beginning of this meeting. There's always a reason. And I want you to make sure you go talk to them about what a good idea this is. It's a lobbying effort, right? I'm very intentional. Never think there's anything I do that doesn't have a reason. That's not. Yes, it is true. Okay. And how you can help. Okay. How you can help is that. how you can help us be open to what I just talked about, how you can help us going and looking at Cornell College. There's 6 institutions, but Cornell College and Colorado College are the 2 that we're looking at most closely. How you can help us is giving us feedback, thinking about things that we haven't thought of. This is a collective community conversation because every one of us owns Stevens. The folks who are here now, and all of you who have been here and continue to come back and be part of this now. So this is the future. This is the direction we're talking about heading in. Believe me, we have spent a lot of time looking at possibilities. I'm sure there are things we haven't thought of, but I don't know what they are because we haven't thought of them. I don't know what we don't know. So if you have ideas or things that we should be thinking about, please let us know. So that's the big picture assignment. The other big picture assignment, I was going to say smaller, but it's not, is just one. If every single one of the people in the world who care about Stevens College would come up with one lead, one recommendation, one reference for a student, this institution would have no problems. And what that does is help you understand the challenges that we face. How many of you have ever said to a 16-year-old student, you should consider Stevens, and they said, yeah. Yeah, right? I mean, really? I love that. How many of you said that and you all raised their hand, and how many of you, and when I said how many of you got the response, not so much, you all put your hands down. Where are those students? So seriously, you've done it. How many of you had that response, like, or nothing, or whatever? It's a hard sell, right? I mean, it is, until they get here. If you could just put them in your car and bring them here, we can take it from there. I'm not even kidding, really. I mean, like, don't kidnap anybody, but, like, I don't know, we could think of something to bribe them. I don't know, we could think about. So, honestly, it takes a village to do everything we do, all of it. And enrollment is job one. So next time you think of somebody, and like, don't get stalky about it, but think about who you know, think about your universe, think about students, and think about it by program. Think about 100% of our students got into vet school. You don't have to tell them it's 3. It's still 100%. And if you know an ambitious high school student who is interested in the sciences, there is no better place to go to college for the sciences than Stevens College. You will not get the same experience anywhere as you are going to get at Stevens College. And that didn't used to be true. It could not be more true now. And we're going to get this grant. You watch. And it's going to even be any better. So you can do it by program. You don't have to do, I think it's important that students say that they came to Stevens not because it's a women's college, but they stayed because it's a women's college. So if you can get them here for program, we'll keep them because it's a women's college. So again, just one. People always say to me, what can I do? That's it. Just one. And you can email me, you can email Darrell, Vice President of Marketing. Darrell's like, D. Carter, D.E. Carter. D.E. Carter. It's D.E. Carter. At Gmail. No, at Gmail. At Stevens. At Gmail. That too, but at Stevens. President or D. Lynch at stevens.edu. We're all in this together. And again, just one. There's got to be somebody out there. You bring them, we'll keep them. And now we have an announcement. We said there was going to be a surprise. School of Health Sciences. Come on up, Anne. This is Anne Murphy is the oh, you should do this. The chair of the Board of Trustees. So could you please thank her for that? And this announcement has been in the works for a long time, but we waited to do it here for you.
Well, I just want to thank you again, Dianne, and I know everybody wants to give Dianne a round of applause. That was great.
Thank you.
I love this every year. It's so exciting to always hear about all the new and great things that are going on campus. And so it was exciting to hear all of that, even with all the challenges every college is facing. But I never, ever want to follow Dianne, and I would only agree to follow Dianne because of getting to announce this today. And I am thrilled to announce that we have a philanthropic gift to Stevens that is a game changer for Stevens today and for tomorrow. I may get choked up. It is so appropriate that we're getting to announce this at our alumni reunion because this is a gift from an alum. This is a gift from an alum named Doris Spiegel Scharf. I have to, I'm getting choked up. She is class of 1942. And over the 10 years that Dianne has been out meeting with Doris, Doris has shared her time at Stevens was an experience she often described as the foundation she needed as a woman, the foundation she needed to become the woman she is. She took great delight. She always loved hearing about our students today, loved hearing about the accomplishments of our students, the changing nature of what Stevens was all about. She was a passionate advocate for the transformational impact of a Stevens education and wanted to help ensure that her own life-changing experience would continue to be possible for others. She wanted to give back to the place that meant so much to her, and how many of us feel that very same way? Doris was a Stevens woman in every sense of the word. We unfortunately lost Doris in 2019, but she was 95 years old, so she lived an incredible life. So it gives me incredible pleasure to announce that the Bill and Doris Scharf, I'm always saying that wrong. I'm going to get it right, I have to. Foundation is dedicated to providing the college annually, forever, $2.5 million a year. Forever, in perpetuity, which in essence equals if she were to give us a $50 million endowment. That's what that means. And for those who may not know, we currently have about somewhere between a $50 and $60 million endowment. Haven't checked the stock market this week. So that's in essence doubling our endowment for what we're able to do. So this is absolutely incredible. So I would say Doris is absolutely ensuring Stevens will continue for our students today and tomorrow and for the next 190 years, since we're celebrating 190 years this year. And it also gives us great pleasure because Doris' gift is going to support the School of Health Sciences. So in recognition of this gift to the college, we're going to name our School of Health Science for Doris. So I think we have another school, so anyone that wants to name the other school we have, it's available.
Right, and we're going to be here in perpetuity. So the fact that this is a gift in perpetuity, and when I asked Doris for So can you hear me? We have just made this public now, and so now you can go send out the press release. So letting our community know first. So we're delighted. Thank you for being here. And I don't think, do we have to?
And I just want to say one more thing. We all owe Dianne a gratitude. She spent 10 years. This gift would not have happened with the incredible education Doris got in 1942, but the 10 years of working not only with Doris, but working with this foundation staff. I've been in fundraising 45 years. I've told some people about, not the amount or whatever, but people in the development world about this gift forever, and they're like, I've never heard of that. This is not a common gift. So we thank you, Dianne, for all your work on this. So I think we're now going to do pictures and everyone, right?
Thank you all for your attention, and I really do appreciate your critical thinking about the future of the college.
Thank you all for coming. So yes, we are prepared for class photos. Now we're going to take one of everybody first. So we're going to line everybody up on the stage. We're gonna have some shifting of tables, so you don't have to do that, but just move towards the stage and we will get you lined up, and then we will start breaking into classes.